Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Tori Cox, and I am the Future City Program Manager. I wanted to welcome you all today to Discover E's very exciting and informative annual Future City theme webinar. As you probably know, this year's Future City theme is Electrify Your Future, and it's all about designing an electrically powered city with energy-generated sources that keep their citizens and environment healthy and safe. This webinar will provide an opportunity for you to hear from a panel of experts who have real-world experience addressing electrification. By the end of this webinar, we hope you will have a lot of material to inspire and expand your own ideas and solutions to this year's topic. We are using the Zoom webinar platform for today's event. If your sound quality is not good, you can switch from using your computer's audio and call in by phone or vice versa. To switch your audio option, just select the button next to the microphone icon. The full recording of this webinar will be sent to all registrants. We will also post the recording and presentation slides on the Future City dashboard. If you have questions for our speakers throughout the webinar, just type them in the Q&A space in the webinar control panel. After all the presenters have spoken, we will begin the Q&A portion of the webinar, and they'll answer as many questions as they can get to. So if you have technical questions about the competition itself or the deliverables, please utilize your competition resources in the Future City dashboard, contact your regional coordinator, or email us at futurecity@discovere.org. We ask that you please keep today's questions on topic about this year's theme. So before we get started, I wanted to provide some information about Discover Engineering, also known as Discover E. Discover E is the organization that runs and organizes the Future City competition. In addition to Future City, Discover E has a lot of other programs and free resources for educators, students, and mentors. Some of our other programs include Engineers Week, Introduce a Girl to Engineering Day, the Persist series, Chats with Changemakers, and the World Engineering Day. We also have classroom activities, STEM career information, and tons of other resources. So be sure to check out discovere.org. I wanted to quickly highlight one of Discover E's programs, and that is Chats with Changemakers. So Chats with Changemakers is a monthly video series that's hosted by a high school student named Kavya. Kavya interviews engineers, technologists, and technicians who are working hard to change the world. So tomorrow, on October 5th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, Kavya will chat with Ben Dopp, a 3D printing specialist at TE Connectivity. He creates amazing products for automobiles, electronics, appliances, and even commercial and military aircraft. It's very cool. So you can actually register for this free event right now. I included the QR code on this slide. So to register, you can just open the camera on your mobile device, hold the camera up to your screen, and then the link to the registration should pop up. So just click on the link and then enter your information. And I'll just give you a couple of seconds to do that. Okay. So the Future City competition, it wouldn't be possible without the help of our great sponsors and partners. In addition to Discover E, the Bechtel Corporation, Bentley Systems Incorporated, and Shell, all of the Future City Finals sponsors and their contributions make the finals competitions and webinars like this possible. Future City is also made possible by the support of our program sponsors. We thank them all for their generosity and continuous support. So let's get started. Okay, so today we have a great panel of experts joining us. Cody Verhalen, who is a partner at Taft's Law Energy Practice Group, and she is also the vice chair of Discover E Board of Directors, will be hosting today's event and introducing our three experts who are looking forward to talking to you about the work they do, why it's important, and how it fits into what you're currently doing or plan to do with your Future City projects this year. So now I'd like to introduce our host for the webinar, Cody Jean Verhalen. As I mentioned, Cody is currently a partner at Taft Law's Energy Practice Group. Cody's practice focuses on a wide variety of electric and natural gas regulatory matters, including transmission line needs, utility rate cases, change of control and ownership cases, and fossil fuel and renewable generating facility needs. In addition to her energy practice, Cody represents a variety of clients on a wide range of environmental matters, including environmental audits, carbon strategy mergers, acquisitions, and property remediation and limitations of liability. In both her energy and environmental work, Cody often draws upon her technical understanding gained during her experience as a professional engineer in Minnesota. From 2016 to 2017, Cody served as the president of the National Society of Professional Engineers. She joined the Discover E Board of Directors in 2017 and is currently the vice chair. Thank you so much for being here today, Cody. I'll now pass the mic over to you.
Thank you, Tori. It's really great to be here today, and I'm really excited to introduce each of our presenters today to our attendees. So thank you so much for joining us for today's topic. First, I'd like to introduce to all of you Danielle Cook, who's an aerospace engineer in the acoustics branch at the NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. She performs experiments, writes research papers, and gives presentations about spacecraft and aircraft. She guides one team that's working on the ventilation fans that astronauts need inside spacecraft, space stations, or even on cities on the moon, so they can breathe clean air while they are on their adventure. She leads another team that is using inspiration from nature to invent parts to make aircraft engines safer, cleaner, and quieter. She really loves working with students of all ages and serves in the Cleveland Federal Executive Board Tutoring Program, the NASA Glenn High School Capstone Projects, and the NASA Summer Internship Programs. She has been the engineer mentor for the St. Ambrose Future City team since 2011. So hopefully you're watching, St. Ambrose. Danielle grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and participated in the Pennsylvania Junior Academy of Science competitions in middle school and in high school. She discovered a love for aeronautics during a summer camp for high school students at St. Vincent College in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. Danielle attended Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, and earned a bachelor's and a master's degree in fluid and thermal engineering sciences. She's a licensed professional engineer in the mechanical field in Ohio, a senior member of the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and the Institute of Noise Control Engineering. She has received numerous awards for her research and outreach, including the 2019 NASA Glenn Research Center Diversity and Inclusion Award. She and her husband, Chris, who is a DJ, have 3 children now in college. Danielle, I'll hand it off to you.
Hello, thank you very much, Cody. And I am very excited about this year's competition, and I know that all of you are too. Electrify your future, and I'm so excited to get started. So we can go to the next slide. So again, yes, the challenge this year is to design a 100% electrically powered city with energy generated from sources that keep citizens and the environment healthy and safe. And Cody, you told them a lot about me, and I'll add a little bit more, but I'm really going to dive in and tell everyone about a hybrid electric aircraft called Susan. And Susan is an airplane that we are doing research on here at NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm going to try and answer 4 important questions you asked me. How will Susan generate electricity from clean, green, and or renewable sources? How will the Susan aircraft store energy? How will we convert today's aircraft engines to new electric engines? And what are the risks and trade-offs of a hybrid or a fully electric aircraft? Hopefully this gives you a little bit of ideas about your futuristic transportation systems for your cities. I'll leave you with a few more resources and links and then, wait for more questions from you. Next slide, please. So yeah, you know a lot about me already. You know, when I was your age, I enjoyed science and reading and writing. I was always doing some arts and crafts and riding my bike around the neighborhood. And like I said, I went through school, did a lot of competitions. I didn't have a chance to be in the Future City competition, but I did other things. By the time I was in college, I did participate. Our school did celebrate Engineers Week, and I loved every minute of it. And after I graduated from school, I became an engineer here at NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. Um, I've been an engineer mentor, like Cody told you, since 2011, since I was introduced to the program through my children's middle school teacher, Lori Hamzik. And shown here is a photo of a Future City team that came to visit me at work. We're standing inside NASA Glenn's Aeroacoustic Propulsion Laboratory. That's a big long name. It's a giant dome, and inside the dome there are no echoes. There are no echoes because the walls of the dome are covered with these foam wedges, and those fiberglass wedges actually absorb unwanted sounds, so that we can take measurements of the sounds that the airplanes that we test make. So in this photo is an airplane engine that we test. Next slide, please. So now about Susan. Susan's a name and it's also an acronym. It stands for Subsonic Single Aft Engine Aircraft Concept. This is an artist's drawing. You won't see this flying over your house anytime soon, although we'd hope so. We use concept aircraft and pictures like this to guide our imagination, because there's really thousands of people who are working hard to develop the technology to make more sustainable flight possible. And this is just one idea we have about how to make large aircraft, like ones that might hold 180 passengers or more, safer, cleaner, and quieter. And so along the way, I'm going to offer some tips too, some hints. Future City teams can use drawings too. If you have a new idea, you can share it by drawing it and express it that way. We'd love to see your drawings. Next slide. So the question, how will Susan generate electricity from clean, green, and/or renewable sources? So one version of the Susan aircraft concept features 17 different engines. One engine is installed in the tail of the aircraft and is used to thrust the airplane forward, and also to generate electricity for the 16 smaller engines mounted on the wings. Our hypothesis is that this airplane might be more efficient and quieter than the airplanes we have today. And we're using the scientific method to, to do experiments to prove or disprove our hypothesis. And I want to encourage the Future City teams to use the scientific method too. We'll need to discover and describe all the technology that we'll need to use to electrify our cities. Next slide, please. So how will Susan store energy? This version of the Susan concept aircraft uses several sets of batteries to store energy on board the airplane. Some batteries we imagine will be recharged by the generator in the engine in the tail. And some batteries we imagine will be single-use batteries, just to provide a little extra, a lot extra electricity in case of an emergency. And we're using the engineering design process to make prototypes of these parts and these systems, and we're testing and making improvements using what we learn along the way. And so your next hint is that, Future City teams can use the engineering design process too, because you're going to need to build, test, and improve the moving parts in your city model. Next slide. So how will we convert today's aircraft engines to new electric engines? That's a great question. We can't just go up to an airplane that we have today and unbolt the engine that's on there and bolt up the new one. Um, Too many things inside the airplane are different. So we have plans to design, build, and test the prototype engines in laboratories and in wind tunnels at NASA. And when the time's right, we'd like to install our prototype engines on a small experimental aircraft like this one that you see in the picture. It's 1/4 the size of the full-size Susan aircraft, and I'm standing with some of my coworkers who are working on the Susan aircraft. And I'd like to encourage Future City teams to make project plans too. Plans help us to make goals, to reflect on our progress, to cooperate and coordinate with others. Next slide, please. And so finally, last question, what are the risks and trade-offs of a hybrid or a fully electric aircraft? We know from research and from experience that hybrid and fully electric aircraft will need really clever ways to help keep the batteries and the controllers and the motors cool so they can operate safely for a long time. All these parts are going to need to be reliable and lightweight and durable so we can reduce the amount of energy that it takes to fly. And we're hoping that 3D printing is one new technology to help us invent new structures for aircraft and aircraft engines. And along the way, we're sharing our results with others in conferences and in meetings around the world. And so I'm excited that future cities can share their ideas with, future city teams can share your ideas with others by writing creative essays and giving presentations too. Look forward to your ideas. Next slide, please. So I'd just like to wish everyone good luck. If you want to find out more about electric aircraft research at NASA or the Susan aircraft, or even a little bit about sustainable aviation fuels, I've left you a few links here. Um, Again, thank you, Cody and everyone at Discover E, and best of luck to all the future city teams.
Thank you so much, Danielle. Certainly a lot to think about as our teams get ready for their planning and are working on their projects this year. Next, I'd love to introduce you to Eva Lerner Lamb, who's founder and president of Palisades Consulting Group Incorporated. She has 46 years of experience in U.S. transportation policy, planning, operations, and standards development, 27 years of highway and venture capital experience in China, and is the recipient of numerous professional society awards and citations. Lerner Lamb served as the director of Eastern U.S. operations for BYD Motors, the world's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, and was co-founder of Ceteria Incorporated, maker of the Autonobox, an automated collision avoidance system for heavy-duty trucks. She received her master's degree in civil engineering and transportation systems from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and her bachelor's degree in economics from Princeton University. That's where she was elected by her classmates to serve as class president and later appointed by the president of the university to serve as a trustee. She holds certificates in blockchain technologies from MIT Sloan School of Business and Management, of Transportation Programs and Systems from the University of California, Irvine. She is vice chair of the New York Metropolitan section of the Society of Automotive Engineers. During the COVID-19 lockdowns, she established the section's online webinar series on EV charging infrastructure for commercial fleets and retail EV customers. Born in Bronx, New York, Lerner Lamb was appointed Director of Planning and Operations for the San Diego Metropolitan Transit Development Board in the early 1980s and served as the gubernatorial member at large on the board of directors of the New Jersey Transit Corporation. She's chaired several technical panels and committees for the National Academy's Transportation Research Board and led landmark transit communications interface profiles data standards development activities in public transit for the U.S. Department of Transportation. She is a charter board member of the Voorhees Transportation Center at Rutgers University, a fellow and former board member of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and the first elected president of the Transportation and Development Institute of the American Society of Civil Engineers. She was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, served on the transition team for the governor of New York, was a policy advisor for the Center for the Study of the Presidency and Congress, as well as a member of an expert panel for the Office of Net Assessment of the Office of the U.S. Secretary of Defense. Eva was also elected to the National Academy of Engineering in 2023 for accelerating adoption of intelligent transportation systems and smart cities codes for standards into engineering practice. Eva, that is so much that you have accomplished, and we are so fortunate to have you. I'll hand the presentation over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you everybody for attending this really exciting session. I'm really so envious of you. The only reason I was able to accomplish those things is because I'm so old. Really, I'm old. But I get energized and feel younger every time I speak with younger people. And so that is why I am so happy to be here. The topic is electrifying your future. And as it happens, one of the most exciting things I've ever been asked to do in my career is to serve as an expert on a technical panel to review the product of MacGillivray Freeman Films, contracted by the American Society of Civil Engineers, called Cities of the Future. It's an IMAX movie that's going to premiere on October 18th of 2023. Got to watch for that. And I'm going to be showing you previews of the prior effort called Future World Vision in the next 2 videos. So whoever is operating the slides for me, please know that what ASCE has been looking at is, what is the world going to look like, not 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years, 50 years from now. So they started this effort in 2020. What's the world supposed to look like in 2070? Are we still going to be around? What kind of air are we breathing? What kind of world are we going to be building for 2070? And the primary question for this webinar today is, how will the cities of the future generate, store, and transmit electricity in order to build and operate not only resilient and sustainable planet, but enjoyable lives? How are we going to enjoy our lives? So please go to the next slide. And this is a 3-minute video that gives you an overview of the mega city of the future. I'm not hearing the audio. So these sort of technical glitches, this is where I do some tap dancing while we figure it out. Just interrupt me whenever you're able to get the sound. But you see what this is like, and you take a look at the you see the tags in there? When you get in, I still don't hear anything. We really need the audio on this, sorry. So I'm gonna keep tap dancing. This is available online. If you go to futureworldvision.org after this webinar, go to futureworldvision.org, you can download this incredible space and click on these tags, and that'll give you a pop-up box on the left-hand side of your screen that will tell you about what it is, like algorithmic structure optimization. If you want to know what that is, you click on that and this box will pop up on the left, and it'll give you 2-3 paragraphs about what algorithmic structure optimization is. And then you can join a discussion. You can ask questions, and anybody on the planet who's downloaded this, is the volume way up on mine? Is everybody able to hear? If everybody's able to hear, I'll just keep talking.
No, I am not able to hear the audio. I'm wondering if the box was checked to allow audio to be broadcast, Eva.
Me? I don't have this.
No.
Oh.
No, it's not on your end. We'll have
Okay.
the team keep working on it. But just so I'm clear, with this screen that I'm seeing in front of me, this is something that can be downloaded. And then what you're saying is, once I've downloaded it, I can interact with this module in these different ways to learn more about certain aspects of the city?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a cheat sheet for your cities of for your Electrify Your Future, because you can actually get in here and click on the elements that are electric. And my second video actually gives you an overview of the electric stuff. Okay, let's.
So are you able to kind of navigate through this module and through the city to highlight different things or explore, I guess might be the term. Okay.
Not only can you explore it, you can interact, you can ask questions, people can answer your questions, and then you can explore, imagine. Now, you can't change what's there. but it can trigger questions and it can trigger discussion. And I've tried it myself, and there are things that have been done in Europe, in Australia, that are brand new, in China, that are brand new to those of us engineers here in the United States. And they share that stuff with us, and they give us links, and we can go to their links and we can download their plans. And it's really an amazing tool. I have a quote at the end of the video. If in case we run out of time, I'll just tell you what that quote is. It's future world vision is the 21st century's drawing board. It's a place where 40 years ago, when I started my career, we had to actually call in-person meetings, and we had these, let's see if this will work.
Big whiteboards.
The whiteboard and the flip charts. Remember those? You had to rip.
Oh yeah.
And then some poor secretary would have to sit there and type in the results, and then we'd have to fax out. You know what a fax is?
I bet.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, we got sound.
All right, here we go.
We'll let it go.
City intro. Our cities are incredible mosaics, reflecting both our collective history as well as our vision of the future. Even though cities require vast resources, their urban density makes them the most efficient places on Earth. Yet urban centers that are unable to evolve to meet the challenges of the 21st century will be left behind as people look elsewhere to build their lives and communities. From 2020 to 2070, climate change and environmental conditions become more extreme, intensifying threats such as flood and fire. Population growth, demographic change, and urban densification add to these challenges. Over time, ever more people relocate to cities, attracted by progress, driven by technological innovation and efficiency, and drawn by the desire for education, culture, and entertainment. The urban migration is further fueled by climate refugees seeking the security of resilient cities. Megacity is one such city, a city of 50 million people in the year 2070. Megacity is a complex ecosystem of diverse and interdependent systems, structures, economies, cultures, and challenges. By 2070, Megacity's resources are decentralized, decarbonized, and modularized to accommodate ongoing innovations in materials, computing power, and transportation, as well as health and education. The success or failure of public policies adopted decades ago is evident in the quality of life provided to all residents. Digital models provide real-time feedback at all scales of infrastructure, and the vastness of data tests the limits of processing, security, and understanding. Energy and water become nested microgrids. Autonomous and aerial vehicles become intertwined with telecommunications networks. Megacity is a fictional place, but it's not fiction. Every street corner, every energy source, the qualities of the water, air, and soil, all are informed by the realities of cities around the globe, from New York to Tokyo, Los Angeles to Lagos. The interactions of every infrastructure system are based on real data and deep research gathered from experts across industry, academia, and government. Over the next 50 years, change and innovation will accelerate, and the unexpected will occur. Yet we will be prepared because we will walk these future streets today. Engineers of the future will understand the communities they serve as well as they do the mechanisms of infrastructure that enable humanity to thrive.
All right. Well, that's just a little thumbnail sketch of all that Future World Vision is. It's an enormous resource for those of us engineers who are trying to envision the future and to do it in a collaborative way with other engineers, planners, policymakers, teachers, etc. My second slide has to do with, somebody's commented that the future Cities of the Future is coming out in February of 2024. That's true. That's the full movie. However, there's going to be a premiere I guess it's a teaser that's coming out on October 18, and that will be all over YouTube and everywhere else. So please watch for that. Okay, let me clear the screen. Okay, and this next little video, I think it's only 1 minute long, focuses on electricity, and that is the topic of your webinar. So I picked this, but there are 3 dozen of these kinds of little short videos. Once you get onto Future World Vision, you can click on them and they'll give you the, maybe not 3 dozen, maybe 1 dozen. Okay, please start.
Mega City Intro.
That would be the last one. You have to go to the next one.
Our cities are incredible mosaic. Mega City Intro.
Energy and utilities. As we transition away from fossil fuels to lower carbon emissions, we simultaneously increase our energy demands due to growing populations and a continued move to automated and intelligent systems. As transportation and industrial processes are electrified and energy production moves to renewable sources, cities must manage huge swings in demand and production over time. There is no single technology that will solve these challenges, so engineers must consider a range of solutions, from sustainable sources of energy to optimizing millions of users on the grid. Microgrids, nested within the larger energy system, allow for better coordination of usage and create redundancy in the system, leading to better security throughout the city. Energy substations function as virtual power plants that coordinate bidirectional power flows from thousands of energy producers and storage units that are built into the surrounding structures and electric vehicles. To accelerate the shift away from fossil fuels, small modular nuclear reactors have been installed in strategic locations and leverage their minimal footprint to offset the growing material costs of solar power and battery storage. While Megacity is not overly reliant on hydroelectric power from dams, the river provides novel forms of energy in the form of microbial fuel cells. In the hypervertical space of the downtown area, each building is a neighborhood, and as such manages many of its own energy needs. However, the coordination between buildings helps illustrate the benefits of nested grid systems to provide efficiency and reliability. Every opportunity to capture and store energy is taken advantage of, but it is not just electricity that is of interest. Among the towering structures of the historic core, the sunlight itself is essential for inhabitants' well-being. And these efforts in power generation would be wasted if the buildings and systems of Megacity were not equally innovative in their approaches to climate control and other functions. Throughout the city, we continue to see this interplay between the macro and micro, with engineers connecting all community members to the grid, while machine learning optimizes energy efficiency.
Thanks very much for getting those slides out, or that video out. Basically,
Energy.
this is the way current civil engineers are envisioning the next 50 years. And we're sort of counting on you, younger generation, to come up with the innovations, the ideas, the energy, the dedication, the commitment to building out to that vision for 2070. And you can become a future world visionary, not only in your discovery efforts, but also over at Future World Vision, which is universally available to everyone, even though it was developed by a professional society, not for profit, called American Society of Civil Engineers, of which I'm a member, and I provided technical advice, information to the production team. And you can become a future world visionary, get familiar with the software, and then engage. There are many, many different ways you can engage, even as a student. Certainly through Discovery, you will be able to engage and just use this tool. Just go ahead and use it. It doesn't cost anything. Show it to your teachers, show it to your mentors. It's available for free for everyone. Next slide, please. So the Future World Vision at futureworldvision.org is our 21st century drawing board, and you can take advantage of it. Get some ideas, share some of your ideas in the discussion on the left-hand side of those videos that 2 of which you've seen. and get together with your classmates and your friends and your mentors and see about building the future for electrification in particular. Next slide, please. I think, yeah, and then that film, I apologize, the film itself is going to premiere in February of 2024, but the previews are going to be available. And so please take a look at the preview. It's going to be 3 minutes long. Share it with your friends, share it with your mentors and teachers, and then go see the film in February. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for that. Really appreciate that presentation. And now we will move on to our last speaker, and I'm really excited to introduce her. Our next presenter is Laura Castle, an electric mobility deal implementation associate at Shell, who's worked for the company for 6 years. Laura joined the Shell Downstream Commercial Graduate Program in 2017 and has since worked in various roles in the areas of communications, sales, environmental conservation, procurement, analytics, and business development. She's an active Houston board member of the Shell Future Energy Leaders, a global sustainability employee network with more than 3,500 members. She has served as a spokesperson and panelist to promote the organization's goals and contribution to thriving through energy transition, and really works to bring more employees aboard. Laura is from the Detroit area in Michigan and is a graduate of Michigan State University with a Bachelor of Arts in Business Marketing and a minor in Environmental Sustainability. She's a major advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion, combating climate change, and spreading kindness. During her free time, she enjoys spending time with loved ones, traveling, and experiencing the outdoors. She enjoys indulging in various tasty cuisines, exercise, mostly yoga and biking, playing beer league kickball, and rooting for the Spartans. Laura, when I am in Houston in November, I'm going to have to look you up and you're going to have to give me some recommendations. But please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cody. So hey, everybody. Hope everyone is doing well today. And I want to thank the previous speakers. They are far more technical than I am, but I'm here to give you a little bit of back to basics view and kind of the commercial, aka business perspective on electrification. So if we can flip to the next slide. So I think that you guys might have quite a bit of background on this already, but like I said, just basics on electrification, which is what we're going back to, right? The smart city. So we want to gravitate away from fossil fuels, which are contributing to global warming, aka climate change. We've seen over the course of the last, even just, I would say 5 years, that natural disasters are getting far worse, and that is because the Earth is warming. So if we look at kind of our infrastructure and how things work, obviously most things are fueled by fossil fuels, so oil, gas, propane, coal. So these are things that will dirty the environment. And so when we first started this infrastructure way back when in in the early days, Industrial Revolution and such, when none of us were around, we probably thought that was a great idea, but we didn't realize that it had very immense consequences for us as a planet going forward. So that's where electrification comes in, and you guys, right? So building your future city, that's really exciting. And I think you already have a ton of good material and resources from both Eva and Danielle, and probably your teachers and mentors as well. So but it is really important collaboration. I really want to emphasize that aspect, and all of the stakeholders working together, because we're still learning, right? This is a new thing. And so I think as we work forward to develop that technology and enable the transition, we need to make sure we're working together. But from my perspective, I work in the transportation space. So I don't do too much with city electrification, but I did do some research on it. And so I thought I'd share it with you a little bit. So if we flip to the next slide. So I just wanted to give kind of a map view, because I think that this is interesting to look at in terms of regional distribution. So the presidential administration, the US government, is looking to power most things with renewable energy in the next 4 or 5 years. And we're still working toward that goal, of course, as I said in my previous, listed in my previous slide. Unfortunately, we are still very much reliant on fossil fuels for our energy, and we need energy. We need to charge our phones, we need to turn on our lights, all very essential things. So access to energy is extremely essential. But as I mentioned before, with the planet piece, that's also important to keep in mind as we move forward and continue to innovate and develop technologies going forward. So this is just kind of a reference point, and I think that it's good to have in mind as we look at our future projected goals regionally. So you can flip to the next slide. So I was just going to dive in a little bit to the pros and cons here for you guys. So obviously I talked quite a bit about lowering greenhouse gas emissions. Real quick, background, you may be aware, but burning fossil fuels is releasing greenhouse gas emissions, and that's warming the atmosphere, causing these natural disasters. So we want to fight that. That is the main goal. And as Cody had described, I'm really passionate about climate change and that space, fighting it. That's kind of actually, surprisingly enough, why I went to work for Shell. At first, I was very much like, no, I do not want to work for an oil company. But Shell does do some stuff in this space, and I'll tell you a little bit about that later. But I'm really passionate about, helping this cause. And so I think it's important to dive into what's good and what's bad about electrification. So greenhouse gas emissions, obviously, big no-no. So electrification is good in that aspect, that it is definitely a viable solution. And then there's also the aspect of higher energy efficiency. So once Danielle described this a little bit with the Susan plane, right? Like you can't just switch out an engine and put in an electric one. It's a huge transformational process. And so that's going to take some time and a lot of smart people and technology and resources. However, once individuals do switch, they tend to see lower energy bills, which is a huge plus, right? Who wants to pay more money in bills? They want to pay less. And you guys will learn that once you're paying your own bills. And so also what's a good thing about this is that substitutes are available for what already exists. So there's something called heat pumps, and there are plenty of options to sub these things out in homes and commercial buildings as well. So, and for the previous bullet point, I'm sorry, just want to jump back real quick. Oil or propane, when you're switching to electric from oil or propane, that's where you save money on your bills. Just keep that in mind. Lastly, improving air quality inside homes. Interestingly enough, there is air pollution sometimes from gas stoves. I think I looked at the stat the other day, and I think it was like maybe up to 15 or 20% of people who have natural gas stoves end up with asthma. So that's kind of concerning, right? Not only is the health of our planet suffering, but our health as humans may be as well. So electrification is safer and just not a pollutant, right? So that would be a plus in any sense. And then lastly, if we do have all electric buildings overall, holistically, costs would be cheaper for housing. And didn't add this in the list, but actually there's quieter operations with electric. So that's a plus because, don't always want to hear something humming. It's nice to have, kind of a seamless, quiet system. But then there's the cons, of course. So again, we're learning in this space, but it is very, very expensive to switch your electric system over from natural gas or oil, propane to electric. So that is kind of something that I think people have the most adherence to. We have to dig up all the transmissions lines. We have to double up the power grid. It's an expensive infrastructure project. So that is something that we don't want to, we don't want to invest if it's not going to work, but we do see promising results from the projections that research has given us. And then in addition to the expensive part for individuals, if you're living in a cold climate, Cody lived in Minnesota or lives in Minnesota, a place like that, when you're switching from natural gas to electricity, you may have higher monthly energy bills just because, more energy is being used. And then power outages. So your appliances, if they're all reliant on electric and your electric goes out, then you won't have a backup. there's no generator. So I have heard from subject matter experts in my business in the city space that natural gas is a good backup. However, I think that we are working toward very much, a place where we can have a backup that is electric and still fully renewable. And then this goes with the power outages piece, low electric grid reliability. So I'll tell you guys a quick story. I don't live in Texas anymore, but I was living in Texas during a freeze in 2021. Texas doesn't really get cold weather. So yes, all the grid pretty much all went out, and most people lost power and running water. Came back for after a couple days for us. But in this aspect, if there is no fallback, if the grid goes down, we're in a very vulnerable place, right? So that's increasing our risk. And so, if there's a solar flare from the sun that causes an electromagnetic pulse, it knocks out the power grid, right? Or a freeze, like I just talked about. So just kind of investing in the research that would, amp up the grid and make sure that we're in a good place in case something does happen is extra important. And so, yeah, I just did a quick summary at the bottom in terms of how there are great substitutes in terms of heat pumps and vehicles, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But it is expensive, and so it's tough to make that transition. But we are working on it, and you guys are adding so much value to that. I'll flip to the next slide. Okay, I'm just going to run through some examples. So next slide, please. Perfect. So the Maryland Transit Systems, this is Montgomery County in Maryland, very random spot, but also pretty cool that they have 70 electric buses. So they created a smart energy bus depot. And with this bus depot, they're saving 160,000 tons of carbon dioxide over the life of the project. And that is a lot, right? So if we could do this in every city or every county, then imagine what effect that would have. It's pretty incredible. So that's just one example. If you guys, what I would suggest for your project is maybe looking into these case studies. There's also a case study about San Diego with the Building Electrification Institute. That is a good one as well. Seattle has done a lot of electrification, as well as Stanford University, I think, went fully electric in 2015. So lots of examples for you guys to study, and highly suggest you just look those specific cities up. I'm happy to list those in the chat as well. And then I'll flip to the next slide. So just going to go into transportation. So that's kind of my wheelhouse. And I work in an area of Shell called Shell Recharge Solutions. So you may think of Shell as just oil, but we do renewable transportation. We also do hydrogen, but we build out chargers for EVs, electric vehicles. So that might be a Tesla or a Chevy Bolt, whatever you want to drive. But I know they are expensive at this time. So there hasn't been a full transition for everybody moving to the EVs, but I think it's good that we have the infrastructure in place when people begin to buy this and with the mix that we currently have. But Shell Recharge Solutions does quite a bit of work in this space. We are really devoted to building out this infrastructure for charging to push electrification forward from a transport perspective. We offer access to over 90,000 charge points globally today at retail stations, new locations, and those owned by private customers. So could be at your home, actually. And then we're also committed to growing to 500,000 by 2025. So that is the goal, but we are looking to enable cleaner transportation through a smarter, more sustainable energy grid, integrated solutions, and growing this charging infrastructure everywhere. And then just want to mention one more thing about this, because transport is a big part. So yeah, I mean, the process of what Shell Recharge Solution does, it's end-to-end, right? So to provide these EV charging solutions. So there's a site evaluation aspect, there's industry-leading hardware and procurement, so thinking about the vendors that you would want to build out some of these charging stations in your electrified city, and then engineering and construction services, installation and commissioning, so just the whole background of getting these set up. And then also we offer a platform for an app for people to charge, which is always good from a technical standpoint. So I will move on to the next one. Okay, and then I'm almost done. So this is my last example, Denver. So it's interesting because Denver has existing, the existing network for electrification, but there was a little bit of a battle with utility companies on electric rates. So this became kind of a contentious issue, aka a little bit of uh, a battle, and that's nobody's fault. And I think that leads me to my next slide, which is the last one, that we still don't know. Sorry, next one. We don't know what we don't know, right? This is totally new to us. I mentioned this at the beginning when we were learning, what our current system would look like and how we build that out. This is the same thing. But you guys are having a major hand in that and adding a ton of value. So like I mentioned before, collaboration is very, very essential, both technical and business and government, all of the stakeholders working together on this. And then also you guys spreading the word about it and making sure to say, you know, as you do this project, hey, I'm realizing how important this is and I want to tell other people about it. I think that's really, really helpful from a young person's perspective. But yes, mitigating emissions is the main goal, and this is a very, very viable way to do that. So thank you so much for your efforts. And I think the resources offered will be really helpful to you guys from all three speakers. But that is all I have, and I will shut up now. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, for all that information. It was a great way to tie together the conceptual to some of the actual and how those issues, how those items have been applied. I am going to bring back all three of our speakers because we have a little bit of time now for question and answer portion of the webinar. Just a reminder, could you please type your questions in the Q&A space in the webinar control panel? And remember that our panelists are here to answer questions about their subject areas and electrifying. If you have questions specifically about the Future City project or questions that your students have about preparing themselves for the Future City competitions, please do refer to your toolkit and those resources. But to get us started off, there's a question in here for you, Danielle. So my understanding is that the Susan aircraft would generate energy via fans attached to electric motors on the wings. This sounds like an idea that my students sometimes bring up of putting a windmill on a car. I always tell them that the drag on the windmill will take more energy than will be generated. How does this aircraft overcome that problem?
Okay, thanks for the question. And I'd like to clarify. So the engines on the wing are fans driven by the motors. So they're not windmills being turned by, like if you would take a pinwheel and stick it out the window of your car and the wind would turn it as you would go. No, the motor's turning the wing mounted propulsors. The tail mounted engine burns some sustainable aviation fuels to heat the air in a combustor to drive a turbine inside the tail, which spins the shaft, which turns a generator, which makes electricity for the engines on the wing. So yes, you're right. If you stuck something outside and you wanted the wind to spin it, it would cause some drag. Yes.
Thanks, Danielle, for that explanation and a little additional context. There's another question here in the chat, and I think, Eva, this one's for you, but we'll start there anyway. Are solar-powered roads feasible?
I think in very targeted, specific use cases, sure, the technology's there today, but they really, it's not going to be widely used, because if you think about solar panel roadways, right? So you've got to collect the solar power first, and you've got to put it into the roadways. I'm assuming you're talking about electrifying charging cars that would be over the roadways first. There's going to be so much electricity lost in the transmission. That's hardly worth it. But then also the actual construction and installation of the cabling and the pipes and all of that have to go under the asphalt. Asphalt has a hard enough time as it is with current internal combustion engine vehicles, trucks, buses, cars. Wait till they turn to electric. I know the pavement engineers have not figured out how to support the 20 to 40% heavier electric vehicles on the existing codes and standards based asphalt on roadways. So now we're going to be ripping up the asphalt, putting in reinforced concrete and asphalt on top of that, and putting in the electricity. That's going to be very costly. Finally, as the asphalt starts to wear down and get ripped up, that's going to render the actual charging infrastructure underneath the roadway to be pretty ineffectual. I don't really see it happening on a widespread basis. Certain use cases, maybe.
I certainly know here in Minnesota, with the amount of snow cover we get in the winter, our asphalt is already challenged as is. So
Yeah.
I'm sure adding those additional items would create some pretty unique challenges, but I think we have, we have 134 participants. So I think maybe some of them might come up with some pretty creative ideas for their future city this year. And that's really helpful background for them to be thinking about some of those challenges, Eva. Laura, let's talk for a minute about the batteries, and then unfortunately, I think we'll be out of time. But a question that came through is as follows. Society is going to have a problem because when EV batteries run out, they'll most likely be landfilled, which causes another large problem. Any ideas on how to avoid this, or any resources that students could go to think through some of these challenges?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a big concern, and we've heard that many times, which is very important to keep in mind. The drawbacks of electric vehicles. There's always something, right? But I was just going to say that they are working actually to create a recycling batteries process. So that could help automakers reclaim up to 98% of the key raw materials for the production. And then that would actually make up nearly 80% of battery manufacturing costs. So I think as more EVs come on the road, that's going to become more of a prominent issue. And so they're working out a recycling process, though I'm not sure it's been fully detailed yet. But I will pass it to Eva because she might know.
There's another use that is actually already being executed in China and also in the United States, and that is to take the partially used batteries and put them all together in a container and use those containers as energy storage. So you can put those energy storage containers in serial, and you can actually have a backup battery storage network or center for a network of retail, residential, business uses, not to mention being able to charge off of those. So the math has to be worked out, the physics have to be worked out. But right now, what they're doing with used batteries is they are putting them together to be battery storage.
There you go. So that's a good idea for certain cities.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about landfilling those in maybe 200 years.
Right.
And we have to plan for 200 years too.
Exactly. Yeah, it's time, right? Because they're already going to the landfill and causing issues. So yeah, I'm glad that's in the works. Yeah.
Well, and thinking through that transition piece, right? Because it's not just limited to what do we do with the batteries when they're done in the EVs, but from a larger perspective, a societal perspective of what are we using for energy to electrify what we do, what we need to have, what we want to have, what's convenient for us to have. And as we transition from fossil fuel generation, there are some trade-offs that come with the various renewable resources that are there, including grid stability, and batteries are an important part of that grid stability conversation. Go ahead, Eva.
One really, really important
one last one
isn't getting enough attention, and that is bi-directional charging. So young people, listen up. Most of the superchargers that are out there, including Teslas, which are great, I drive a Tesla, they're great, but they are DC fast charging. That's direct current. That means we've got a whole bunch of vehicles in the near future that are driving around that cannot push energy out of the vehicle to charge up anything else. Now, if you imagine, if you can get bi-directional supercharging going on, which there are Chinese companies that are already doing this, we can do it too here in America. If we get bi-directional charging, that means every electric bus, truck, and car that's out there that's charged can end up being a resilient solution to an emergency, a tornado, a hurricane. You'd have mobile energy sources on all of your roadways if you have bi-directional supercharging. And right now, the only thing, boy, any electrical engineers, listen up. The only reason why we don't have AC bi-directional charging right now is because the cost of the inverter, in terms of the weight of the inverter, as well as the cost of the inverter, gets put on the vehicle. Vehicle manufacturers are trying to lower the cost of their vehicles, so they want to put the inverter on the roadside, on the charger side. Guys, you got to figure this out. The opportunity to have emergency mobile energy charging on the vehicles that we have running around our country, it's a huge opportunity, and we're not paying attention to it. Whoever comes up with a way to put a cheap, lightweight inverter on board vehicles is going to be a hero.
Well, we're gonna end on that. That's very inspiring and definitely a moonshot goal for these students. So unfortunately, we have reached the top of the hour and need to end our webinar. But I, on behalf of Discovery, want to give a huge thank you to our panelists, Danielle Cook, Eva Lerner-Lamb, and Laura Castle. Thank you so much for your time today. The recording of this webinar and presentation slides will all be available on the Future City dashboard in the competition resources shortly after this. Obviously, the data needs to be compressed and uploaded, so it will take a little bit of time. I hope you all really enjoyed the webinar and found it helpful as you work on your cities of the future. I'm excited to see what these students bring to the national competition in February and each of their regional competitions before that. But if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to futurecity@discovere.org. Please have a great day, everyone, and stay well.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.